We're reacting to 5 disturbing moments in TV history by Chilean Scares. Now, our last video, we did pretty good, I ain't gonna lie. So I kind of want to do another video, you know what I'm saying? If you guys are enjoying the videos, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 1K. Alright then, I'm not trying to talk too much. We're gonna get straight into this shit, bro. Let's go.
Early hours of October 15th, 1980, a small staff at WCPO in Cincinnati was working through what should have been an ordinary night shift. But at around 2 a.m., news reporter Elaine Green and a channel photographer were heading out to their cars when a man carrying a semi-automatic rifle stepped out from the dark and ordered them back inside. He assured them no one was going to get hurt and he just wanted to say something he needed the cameras for. The man was 41-year-old James Hoskins, an out-of-work artist living in Cincinnati's Over-the-Rhine neighborhood, which is one of the poorest areas in the city. Along with the rifle, he also had 5 handguns and roughly 600 rounds of ammunition. By
No
the time
fucking
the rest
way.
of the staff realized what was happening, James already had the entire newsroom under his control. He gathered all 9 employees at gunpoint and told Elaine he wanted to go live on television to deliver a message. Elaine, however, convinced him to record the interview on tape instead, preventing the station from airing an unpredictable hostage situation live to viewers at home. What no one at WCPO knew yet was that the most tragic part of the night had already happened hours earlier. When the camera finally started recording, James began explaining why he had come there in the first place, while holding a gun in his hand the entire time.
Dude, that is scary, bro.
Okay.
Well, I really didn't have anything together, but there's been so much violence.
Bro, he's talking so casually about it. I'm sorry. He's not like what's it called? I don't know. He just sounds so normal about it. Like nothing just
He
happened.
talked about the violence and poverty he witnessed every day from his apartment window in Over the Rhine.
There's not enough attention paid for the poor people in the Over the Rhine area. And there
Oh,
seems to be
damn.
in the country a growing kind of thing to keep black and white at each other's throats, to keep the rich on top, so the poor people have no way to fight. The police have become the knights, the buffer between the rich and the poor. And the poor, I don't know if you've ever been in the Over the Rhine area to see the old people. They have nothing. I watch them. They have nothing. They sit in their bed all day long, and that's all they have to look forward to.
Oh,
Nothing's happening
damn.
for them. Nobody cares. Nobody does anything for them.
He then
Wow.
turned that frustration toward the media and the city itself, accusing news stations of only entering these neighborhoods after someone had been killed, while city officials cleared low-income housing so visitors coming for conventions wouldn't have to see the poverty there.
That's just
Seems like the
sad.
things you should be covering, you don't cover. You don't. You never come into the area unless somebody gets wasted. They're displacing people. They tear the buildings down so that when the people come into the convention centers, they don't have to look at the poor people.
But even as James laid
Yo, that is so sad, bro. You know, like people just really don't talk about what's going on. Even today, bro, people are just struggling financially to the point where they end up being in the streets, bro, and it's hard. Especially homeless people are getting ignored. It's so sad, bro. It's sad to see this, bro. Even though this this been taken back in the 90s, bro. It's still sad today, bro, because it's just still even today it's still going on, and no one's doing nothing about it. The rich is getting rich, and the poor stays poor, and that's just like sad, bro. You know what I'm saying?
all of this out, he kept speaking like a man who knew exactly how the night was going to end.
Can you see this world from your window?
I can see the world from my bay windows, up and down the street.
Possibly a story could be done from your window of the world
I
you
won't
see.
be there in my windows after this, I'm sure.
Why?
Maybe you can do it from my windows, but I won't be there.
This only added to the seriousness of the interview. But for a man forcing people to listen at gunpoint and claiming that he was about to no longer be here, most of James's points didn't sound completely detached from reality. He was rambling and at times struggled to get his thoughts together, but his anger kept circling back to real problems and a system he believed had abandoned the people he was supposed to protect.
Right. I mean, I don't think he was like coming in like just to like kill people or anything like that. I think he came at this at the wrong way. But like I get what he's trying to do, like what he's trying to say, but like the way he's going at it is just like literally the like wrong way, and people are just gonna look at it like, well, oh, now like they're fucking crazy, they're like savages. You know what I'm saying?
This would go on for nearly 10 minutes. As the tape started running out, Elaine asked if there was any final point he wanted to make. And that's when James finally said what he actually wanted next.
Jim, we have probably another minute or so on this tape. Is there any other point you wanted to make?
I can't think of any point I want to make, except give me a place where the police can come and get me. We're going to shoot it out.
Holy
And you
shit.
people can leave.
Here?
Well, I don't see any other place for me to shoot it out. They've got their magnums. They want to hurt the poor people in the street. I've got my magnums. I'm ready. I'm loaded.
Damn, you can see in her
Hearing
eyes, bro.
that,
She's
the
just
people in the room
scared.
tried to reason him out of his plan, pointing out that what he had just said sounded too idealistic to end in a shootout. But
Crazy way
James's
to
response
go
to
out.
it immediately changed the context of the entire interview.
Idealistic things you just said. How
He seems such a nice gentleman.
you could do
I blew my girlfriend away tonight.
What? What? Oh my god, that's crazy thing to say, dude. I think what she just said. Like, what do you say to that? Like, what do you say to that? Holy fuck!
Before coming
Like,
to
I don't blame her. Like, what the fuck? Like, seemed like a cool dude. You're just going through a lot of shit, poverty and like crime and stuff like that. And this fool's like, oh, I blew my fucking girlfriend. I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck?
night, James had shot his girlfriend, 30-year-old Melanie Finley. She was later found inside their shared apartment on 12th Street. This confession made his calmness even more disturbing, as it became clear that James wasn't using the cameras to fight a corrupt system. He was using them to explain something he believed could no longer be undone. And even after Elaine and others kept pleading that he could still get help, James insisted he was already past saving, blaming drugs, paranoia, and a plan he said had started long before that night.
Wow.
We don't want to see
I
you
have no
hurt.
choice. I have murdered my girlfriend. I have been taking this weird drug. I am out of my mind,
But you
man.
can get help.
I can't. We planned. We did all these things. This whole thing was planned back in San Francisco.
Oh, so yeah, bro. Yeah, he's fucking crazy, bro. Like, I was with him in the beginning. Like, I understand what he's going through with property and crime in the city, but with the whole killing the girlfriend thing and like drugs and shit, yeah, you lost me there, buddy. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I'm gonna keep it book.
Over the period of time, I've become paranoid. To tell you the
But I understand, bro. Like, it's just like I'm not trying to disregard his, like, you know, what he's gone through, but at the same time, this is just, it's just so fucked up, bro. And your only way out of this is to kind of like have a shootout with the cops. Is crazy, bro.
The angel dust people turned me on to angel dust. They did numbers on me in San Francisco that I ran from one end of the place to the other.
San Francisco, huh?
He was certain that he couldn't come back from what he had committed already.
I know that I'm slipping away.
Can't we help you before you slip any? You don't want to slip completely
I'm
away.
gone. I'm gone. All they'll do,
I don't know.
there is no help for me. Look, I murdered my girlfriend. God damn, man, I killed her.
I'm sorry, you lady. You just let's just let him be, bro. Because there's, like he said, he's lost. You know what I'm saying? He's off the grid. He's there's no way of saving him.
After roughly 90 minutes, James let all 9 hostages leave unharmed and barricaded himself alone in the newsroom as police and SWAT surrounded the building. Negotiators spoke with him by phone through the morning, trying to talk him down. But at 9:15 a.m., while speaking to an officer on the phone, James said, "Well, it's time. I'm going to do it now." Police waited another 4 hours before entering the building, fearing it might be a trap. When they finally went inside at 1:45 p.m., they found James on the newsroom floor with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And when investigators searched his apartment, they realized the interview at WCPO may have only been one part of a much darker plan. They found more weapons, bomb-making materials,
What?
and detailed files on prominent city figures, filed under labels like political creeps, business creeps, and police tactics. Elaine Green later won a Peabody Award for her courage in the interview. Much of what James said that night still sounds like fair criticism even today.
Right.
But the way in which he forced the world to hear it is what made the footage so disturbing.
I get where he's coming from. Like, I get the message. Like, we can all understand. We can all relate what he's going through. But the way he goes about it, bro, isn't the right way. This is not the right way to send a message, bro. If only you're making the situation worse and nobody is gonna be in your side. You already confess of a crime of killing your girlfriend, drugs, and who knows what you've been doing. Man, bro, it's just crazy, bro.
On Halloween night 1990, roughly 150 people gathered at Blackbeard's Family Fun Center in Fresno, California to watch a local magician attempt
Fresno.
something no stuntman had ever
I have a
survived.
friend named at Fresno.
32-year-old Joseph Boris, or Amazing Joe, was a self-taught magician from Fresno who had spent years trying to surpass Harry Houdini and become the greatest escape artist ever.
Crazy.
And on this night, the anniversary of Houdini's death, he wanted to prove it. His plan was to be handcuffed, wrapped in chains, locked inside a transparent plastic coffin, and be buried alive in a 7-foot grave, all recorded for TV. If everything went according to plan, he would
I
escape
feel claustrophobic just like seeing that.
in less than a minute. But the problem was that even Houdini himself had nearly died attempting a version of this stunt in 1915, when the pressure of dirt got so overwhelming that he lost consciousness and had to be pulled out by his assistants before he died of suffocation. Joe, however, had already survived a simpler version of the stunt a year before in Oregon, where he escaped from a wooden coffin buried under dirt. That success gave him the confidence to go bigger.
Oh,
So
shit.
for the Fresno performance, Joe added
Crazy.
something even Houdini never used: wet concrete. But during the days leading up to the stunt, one small detail had already hinted that Joe may have been taking too big of a risk. Still, when Joe arrived on location in a white tuxedo and white shoes, he gave the crowd no reason to think the stunt was in doubt. In the crowd were members of his family, including his 13 and 10-year-old sons, which made it seem
Wow.
like Joe had everything under control. So, in front of everyone, he let his assistants handcuff him and
So he died in front of his kids and wife? Oh, what the fuck, dude?
wrap chains around him before sealing him inside the transparent plastic coffin. Once the lid was locked, the coffin was lowered into the 7-foot grave, and his assistants began shoveling dirt into the hole until there was about 3 feet worth. Then a cement truck
Oh
pulled
my
in
God.
and poured about 3 feet of wet concrete on top. The plan was for Joe to free himself before the wet cement fully dried up and trapped his escape route. But as soon as the hole was filled to the edge, the dirt and concrete both suddenly dropped about 2 feet.
Oh my
as
God.
Witnesses heard the coffin shatter somewhere beneath all that weight.
It was a cold night.
Yeah, you can't survive that shit, bro. I don't know how long it takes for the concrete to hardening, but bro, I don't think he has time for that, bro. I think he's cooked.
Anyway, and when it sunk, I just knew
Oh my God,
Trouble.
sunk. The way it
We're in
sunk in
trouble.
is crazy.
it's not fun anymore.
The crowd that had been waiting for Joe to climb out now watched the crew rush back in and start digging through the same dirt and concrete they had just buried him under.
What?
Unfortunately, by the time rescuers pulled him from the ground, he had already passed away.
What?
Pathologists later found concrete under his fingernails, suggesting that even after the coffin gave way, Joe may have still been trying to dig himself out. But the most disturbing part is
Nah,
that this
that's just
collapse wasn't
sad.
some freak accident no one could have seen coming. Joe's entire plan depended on him escaping the coffin in under a minute, because once the concrete covered him, there was almost no room for delay. But during practice, the same escape had taken 5 minutes. On top of that, the plastic coffin had already cracked during one of the earlier practice runs. But instead of replacing it, Joe patched it up himself using glue from a hardware store. Even Joe's own assistant later said that he never calculated the combined weight of the dirt and wet concrete together, and that his only test of the coffin's strength was jumping on it. To give you a rough idea, if the grave covered about the same footprint as the coffin, the 3 feet of dirt alone would have weighed close to 4,000 pounds. Then the
What?
wet concrete added another 7,500 pounds on top of that. So
Yeah,
by the
bro.
time the grave was filled,
He's
the plastic
cooked.
coffin was holding roughly 11,500 pounds of weight, which, to
Damn.
put things into perspective, is almost the same weight as an adult elephant. As the coffin collapsed, all that pressure dropped directly on Joe. The Fresno County Coroner's Office ruled his death as asphyxia caused by compression of his chest.
That's so
In
sad.
the end, Joe Boris died on the same night as the magician he had spent his whole career trying to surpass.
That's so sad.
At around 9:30 p.m. on May 28, 1982, viewers in Phoenix, Arizona had their regular programming interrupted by an unscheduled broadcast on KOOL.
Us to relay to you. Mr. Gwynn, is it all right for our guest to leave the studio now? All right, you may leave now.
On the screen was veteran news director Bill Close, sitting next to a man he addressed as only Mr. Gwynn and reading aloud from a handwritten script.
This is the script that Mr. Gwynn gave me, and I'm going to read it verbatim, and anytime you wish to interrupt me.
The words jumped between country music singers, religious prophecies, civil war, and a coming World War III. To the viewers watching at home, the broadcast looked strange enough on its own, but what they couldn't see was a .38 caliber rifle aimed directly at Bill's stomach beneath the desk.
What?
The man sitting beside him was 28-year-old Joseph Billy Gwynn, and roughly 4.5 hours earlier, he had forced his way into the KOOL building carrying that revolver and a small portable
Is that a
television
robbery?
monitor. The first person he came across was production assistant Nancy Petranka, whom he confronted before pushing past her and forcing his way deeper into the station, where another employee named Louis Villa stepped in his way and tried to stop him. But Joseph pistol whipped him across the head, locked him into a chokehold, and dragged him straight onto the set where Bill and two
Nah, this looks like a movie, bro. Deadass. This is like a movie, bro. Holy shit.
other station employees were preparing to go live for the evening news. With 4 employees now under his control, Joseph fired a single shot into the ceiling to prove his weapon was real. But when Bill asked what he wanted, Joseph's answer only raised more questions.
In visions and dreams, how God showed me what was going to happen in the future. Those cities are going to be built and there's going to be destroyed. There's going to be civil war in America. America is going to be divided up.
Wow, bro. Wow. You know what's crazy, bro? I think that's what's happening right now. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. What the fuck? Is he predicting something? What are you trying to say?
By then, the people inside the station had already realized they were dealing with someone whose grip on reality was slipping, badly. Over the next several hours, Bill worked the phone with police negotiators, carefully relaying Joseph's demand to appear on television and have his statement read live on air. And every time he spoke to police, he had to walk back over to Joseph.
But why do this, bro? Like, if you have something to kind of talk about, something you want to get this off your chest, why go to a station where people, like, I don't know, dude. It's just like so horrible way to put your message out there. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It could have been different ways to do this, but I don't know. I don't know what was going through his head, but I don't know. We'll just see. We'll have to see. We have to see.
He started believing he was being stalled or ignored. But as the hours dragged on, Joseph became increasingly convinced that the station had no intention of broadcasting his message. And the longer he waited, the more desperate he became. So, with Joseph growing more unstable and a loaded revolver still pressed against Louis, police finally agreed to let him go live on air with Bill at around 9:30 p.m.
Okay.
My name is Joe Gwynn. I am a watchman. Read the 33rd chapter of Ezekiel. This is about the story of the 10 prophets.
For the next 21 minutes, Bill read Joseph's 11-page, almost incoherent statement live to the people of Phoenix.
The 10 prophets are Johnny Cash, Ronnie Millsap, Eddie Rabbitt, Barbara Mondrell, Joe Gwynn, the traitor. The Arizona Republic and Phoenix Gazette can verify this story. 16 years ago in September, about the 25th of 1966, all
66
of these names above meet at the same time, including me. I was almost 13 years old. We all meet, and we're together at the same hour.
What years was this?
Seriously, I was the only one who knew what it was about. The others didn't. I did.
The more Bill read, the harder the message became to follow, drifting from biblical prophecy into Islamophobic rambling.
Then the angel shows me a book about me and the life I was supposed to live. The angel told me the story about the 10 prophets. Then he told me I was a watchman, Ezekiel chapter 33. The angel told me I would meet all these people, the 10 prophets, the country singers. This is these people's part they have in this. Back to the beginning. Islam used sociology on our people. Islam is using this sociology on children. They used it on my generation to start the hippie movement and drugs, and on today's generation to turn them into punks and punk rockers by hypnotism.
As the statement went on, Joseph's prophecies got even more bizarre, describing an American civil war and a third world war that he believed were coming in the years ahead.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Still more, right? You know what I'm saying? The America right now, it is kind of, we're divided in a war and world. Shit.
Islam is going to blow these cities up with atomic bombs. These 5 cities are Cyclops in Pennsylvania, Ominix in Arkansas, Yosemite in Nebraska, Isolox or Ichabod in Idaho, and Snicks in New Mexico. All these cities will be isolated. After this happens, there will be civil war in America. The United States will be divided up into 4 countries. World War III will start in the fall of 1988. Edward Kennedy will lead the United States in World War III. He will be the next president and be elected 2 terms. The angel said we could unite and fight these Muslims there, Islam and as allies.
But the clearest sign of how far gone Joseph was came from the small monitor he had brought with him. Throughout the broadcast, he kept checking it to make sure the station was actually airing his message, as if the only thing Joseph trusted in that room was the version of reality playing out in his own mind. When Bill finished reading the final page, Joseph calmly handed Bill the revolver and surrendered without resistance.
I got a sweaty palm. I want to shake hands with you.
You really do.
Bro, you did all this, bro, just for a message, bro. Holy shit. Was this worth it, bro? Was this really worth it? Wow.
You bet. I told you I was playing this fair. Did you think you didn't trust me? All this... Oh, hell, it's all right. Leave him alone. It's okay. Put down the guns. I have the gun. Back off with the guns.
By that point, every person in that studio had spent almost 5 hours trapped inside a situation that could...
Bro, why do you even shake his hand, bro? Bro, like, was ready to shoot you, bro. I don't know why, bro. It's whatever.
Changed any moment Joseph stopped believing Bill was on his side. Joseph was later charged with 4 counts of armed kidnapping, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and first-degree burglary. But after pleading no contest, he was declared legally insane and committed to the Arizona State Hospital. However, Joseph was released just 6 months later, despite prosecutors and even some of the psychiatrists involved warning that they weren't convinced he was safe to be back out in public. And 2 years after the hostage crisis, the same delusions appeared again. Joseph was arrested at a Phoenix convenience store after assaulting and threatening 2 clerks while screaming that Johnny Cash was going to kill his family. This time, the arrest triggered a probation violation from the original hostage case. Joseph was sent to prison, and he wouldn't be released until 2005, more than 2 decades after he first walked into that newsroom with a gun.
Wow, bro.
On March 5th, 1989, a local news crew in Moncks Corner, South Carolina was filming the 3rd day of the search for 5-year-old Justin Lee Turner. 2 days earlier, Justin's stepmother, Pamela Turner, had called the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office after he never came home from school. According to Pamela, Justin had left that morning to catch the bus from a neighbor's property a few hundred yards away. But when the bus returned that afternoon, he wasn't on it. And once police checked with the school and other witnesses, they learned that he never made it to the bus that morning.
What?
For the next 2 days, local police, the Berkeley County Rescue Squad, and dozens of volunteers searched the area around the Turner property off Horseshoe Road. They combed through the woods surrounding the home and checked sheds, storage spaces, and abandoned structures across the property, but still found no sign of Justin. By the morning of March 5th, search crews were getting ready to spend another full day going back around the same ground while a local TV crew from WCBD followed them around documenting the search.
Go all the way, cross.
But the search barely lasted 5 minutes, as Justin's
5
father,
minutes?
Victor Lee Turner, walked up to an old camper on the family's property and looked inside.
My son's in there.
What? Wait, no, wait, hold up.
Everybody stand back. Everybody stand back.
Inside a cabinet in the camper was the body of 5-year-old Justin Lee Turner.
How?
In the few seconds caught by the TV crew right after the discovery, Victor may have revealed something he never intended to. The Turner property was immediately locked down as a crime scene. State agents started searching through the camper in the family's home, checking for fingerprints and trying to figure out how Justin ended up hidden there in the first place. Autopsy results later showed that Justin was strangled to death, but the physical evidence from the camper led nowhere, and the case went on to stall for years to come. Without any solid lead, attention slowly shifted back to the moment Justin was found. Investigators found that, according to reports, the camper had already been searched during the first 2 days Justin was missing, and nothing had been found inside. So, if those earlier searches were done properly, then someone had placed Justin's body there after the search was already underway, while police, volunteers, and reporters were still moving around the property.
Oh my
That meant
God.
the killer had enough access to the Turner property to return to the camper without being noticed. Even the footage captured by the TV crew added to that suspicion. When Victor looked inside the camper, he didn't seem to rush in to check whether Justin was still alive. He didn't even call out his name or try to pull him out. He backed away almost immediately, as if he already knew what he was going to find. Now, to be fair, there's no single normal way for a parent to react to something like that. But investigators still found the behavior difficult to ignore, especially considering how quickly Victor went straight to the camper once the search resumed. Then
yeah, this is a little weird. I ain't gonna lie. You know, very suspicious, very sus. But we don't know yet. We don't know. Like he said, you know, people have their own ways to grieve. They have their own ways to kind of like react in that moment. We got high alerts on this guy, man.
Located Justin within seconds, despite the camper having multiple drawers and cabinets. But despite all of these observations, the suspicion around Victor and Pamela still wasn't enough to hold up in court. Most of what pointed toward them was circumstantial, and without physical evidence separating normal family contact from the day Justin died, investigators had no way to turn those suspicions into something they could actually prove. As the years passed and the case went cold, Victor and Pamela eventually left Berkeley County and moved to South Carolina's upstate. And according to investigators, neither of them ever contacted law enforcement again to ask about the case or whether any progress had been made. For decades, that was where the suspicion stayed.
Interesting.
But years later, a new possibility emerged that hinted at something far more chilling than a family cover-up. In September 2023, a law professor at the University of Virginia and her students were mapping the movements of serial killer Richard Mark Ivanitz when one of them uncovered something unexpected. Richard had served in the Navy, and after tracking down naval records, the student found that the ship he was assigned to arrived in Charleston on March 3rd, 1989, the same day Justin vanished. Monk's Corner, where the Turners lived, was only about a 50-minute drive from the port. And once researchers started comparing Richard's known crimes to Justin's case, the similarities became difficult to ignore.
Interesting.
Just like the theory surrounding the Turners, there was still no physical evidence directly tying Richard to Justin's death. Unfortunately, the police couldn't question him because by that time, Richard had already been dead for more than 20 years. He had lost his life in a police chase in Florida in 2002 after one of his kidnapping victims escaped and identified him to authorities. To make matters worse, his body was cremated and his ashes scattered, leaving no way to test his DNA against anything from Justin's case. So instead of pulling suspicion away from the Turners, the theory only left investigators stuck between two possibilities that were both disturbing in completely different ways. Either someone close to Justin had killed him and hidden his body back on the property while the search was already happening, or a serial killer from outside had somehow entered that same space without leaving proof behind. The answer remained uncertain for decades, until investigators announced what looked like the first real break in the case in 35 years. Using newer forensic testing methods, investigators re-examined microscopic fibers recovered from Justin's shirt and compared them to a rope found inside the Turner home. According to them, the fibers were consistent with the possibility that the same rope had been used to strangle him. Shortly afterwards, 68-year-old Victor and 63-year-old Pamela Turner were both arrested and charged with Justin's murder in January 2024. And for the first time in decades, it looked like the case might finally be heading towards some kind of answer. But just a few months later, it fell apart again.
Bro, so many years has passed. Holy shit, bro. And it sucks that there's still unsolved cases like these that haven't been solved in years. And damn, decades has passed, bro. Years has passed.
In 2024, Judge Roger Young dismissed the charges with prejudice, ruling that after 35 years, with over 20 witnesses either dead or unable to testify and no real new evidence on the table, there was no way to give the Turners a fair trial. Because it was dismissed with prejudice, the decision was permanent and the charges can never be refiled. So, after everything, the mystery of Justin's murder landed right where it started in 1989, and those few seconds of footage captured by WCBD may still be the closest thing this case ever gets to an answer.
Crazy, bro.
On the morning of June 26, 1995, viewers in Mason City, Iowa tuned into their regular Monday morning newscast on KIMT.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to Daybreak. It's June 26th. I'm Jody Huizentrood.
And I'm Kevin Skarupa. Good morning, everybody. And
coming up, a wild weather weekend.
On screen was 27-year-old news anchor Jody Huizentrood, smiling through the early morning broadcast with her co-host Kevin Skarupa. The two hosts talked lightheartedly as they discussed the weather for the day ahead. At the time, there was no reason for anyone watching to remember these moments, but this would soon become the last broadcast Jody would ever appear in. The next morning, Jody was supposed to arrive at the station by 3:30 a.m. to prepare for the 6 a.m. newscast. But when she didn't show up, producer Amy Kunz called her apartment at around 4:10 a.m. Jody answered, sounding like she had just woken up. She said she had overslept and told Amy she would be right there. That was the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with Jody Husentrude. By 6 a.m., when Jody still hadn't arrived, Amy was forced to anchor the show without her. And that alone was enough to worry the newsroom, because Jody had never missed a newscast before. Shortly after 7 a.m., her coworkers called the police. When officers arrived at her apartment, the reason she never made it to work became clear within minutes. Jody's car was still parked just outside her apartment building, but everything around it suggested she had been attacked right as she was trying to leave. Scattered around the car were her belongings, including her shoes, blow dryer, hairspray can, earrings, and a bent car key. Nearby officers also found drag marks on the pavement and clear signs of a struggle. When investigators spoke to the people in the apartment complex, some residents said they had heard screams around the time Jody would have been leaving for work. Another resident reported seeing a white Ford Econoline van idling nearby. But none of those...
It's always those fucking vans, bro. It's always this van, bro.
Details reached police until after Jody was already gone. By the time they pieced everything together, they had an idea of what could have taken place. She probably made it to her car and was unlocking the front door when someone attacked her from behind, explaining the bent car key. But finding who did it would prove to be a far more challenging task. With no usable fingerprints, tire tracks, or clear eyewitnesses, investigators turned their attention to the people in Jody's life to find the answer. The first name to draw serious attention was 49-year-old John Van Cise. The night before she disappeared, Jody had gone to his home to watch a video from a surprise birthday party he had thrown for her 2 weeks earlier. On its own, nothing about that visit seemed unusual, but to some of Jody's friends, John's feelings towards her had started to seem strange. Even though they both described the relationship as a friendship, people around her sensed that his attachment to Jody was turning into an obsession, to the point that he even named his boat after her. So naturally, when Jody vanished just hours after leaving his home, all this context turned him into a potential suspect. But that suspicion never turned into proof. John cooperated with investigators, provided DNA, passed a polygraph test, and years later, police even placed GPS trackers on his vehicles to see if his movements might lead them somewhere. But none of it produced anything tying him to Jody's disappearance. And as it turned out, John wouldn't be the last person in Jody's life whose attachment to her caught investigators' attention. However, for the next 2 years, every possible lead investigators came across seemed to end in a similar way. Close enough to raise questions, not strong enough to answer them. This went on until 1997, when a new name entered the investigation. A man named Tony Jackson was arrested in the Minneapolis area around that time. When police looked backward through his timeline, 2 details stood out immediately. At the time Jody disappeared, Tony had been living in Mason City, only 2 blocks from the KAMT station where she worked, and close enough to her apartment for the connection to matter. On top of that, the nature of his confirmed crimes involved stalking, abducting, and sudden violence against women, which fit the kind of offender who could have walked in an apartment parking lot before sunrise and attacked without warning. But once again, the case stopped at the same wall. His DNA didn't match the physical evidence recovered from the scene, and after a full review of the evidence and a polygraph, Mason City Police confirmed that he wasn't considered a viable suspect in May of 1999. By then, nearly 4 years had passed without Jody being found, and on May 14, 2001, she was declared legally dead. But the case never really went cold. Her story became one of the most discussed disappearances in the country because of consistent national coverage. But even with that exposure, the investigation would go nearly 3 decades without any breakthrough.
No, like literally nobody found her at all, not even the body. What the fuck, bro? How do people just disappear like that, bro? You gotta be very like form of professionalism to even be pulling this out, bro. I'm talking like CIA or some shit.
Enough to change the direction of the case. Then in 2025, a Hulu documentary brought another name to the spotlight. And this time, the information came from someone who had known Jody since childhood. Patty Niemeyer was one of Jody's closest friends growing up, and she had been married to a man named Brad Millerburn. But according to Patty, Brad had been fixated on Jody throughout their marriage. And this fixation eventually became one of the reasons for their divorce, which was finalized on June 23rd, 1995, exactly 4 days before Jody disappeared. Once investigators looked closer at Brad, one detail pulled the case back to something witnesses had reported from the very beginning. At the time of the abduction, Brad had access to a white Ford Econoline van, which he used for work. It was the same type of vehicle someone had seen near Jody's apartment that morning. Once this connection was established, investigators showed Patty a few sketches of a man who had reportedly been seen around Jody's apartment complex before she disappeared. When Patty looked at these sketches, she seemed confident that they looked like Brad. Unfortunately, just like every other person of interest in this case,
Are you serious?
that lead never turned into anything meaningful. Brad denied any involvement with the disappearance and cooperated with investigators.
No.
And after multiple interrogations and thorough property searches, officials found no forensic link connecting him to the crime scene. So,
bro.
even after thousands of tips and several persons of interest over the decades, no one has ever been arrested or charged for Jodi's disappearance. And more than 30 years later, the broadcast from the morning of June 26, 1995, still remains the last public record of Jodi Huisentruit alive.
Oh my god, that is so scary, bro. That's so sad too. Yeah, bro, that is so sad, bro. You know, I was hoping for, you know, the case to be solved and shit like that, but you know, that's why y'all need to be careful, you know, when you're out there, especially all the ladies out there who's watching right now. Y'all be careful. It's an evil world out there for sure. But anyways, I'm gonna end the video here. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1K. That's it. I'll see you guys later. Lates.